it's just one of those things, right? I mean,
Hmm.
the life of an ER nurse especially is 100% flexibility. Like you have no
Hmm.
idea what's going to walk in the door. So a skill of mine that I didn't realize was a skill was I'm hella flexible. And truly there is a lot of money to be made by being flexible, by not knowing your schedule months in advance, by,
Hmm.
kind of again gaming the system.
Welcome to Biz Help for You, the show that saves you the expensive learning curve by providing advice from industry experts in every facet of the entrepreneurial journey. Too many small businesses collapse. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 20% fail within their first year, and less than 35% make it to their 10th anniversary. The goal of this podcast is to change that statistic. So if you're interested in learning more to be a successful entrepreneur, tune in today.
Let me tell you a little bit about our guest today. Jenn Johnson, an experienced ER nurse with 16 years in the field, transitioned from healthcare to entrepreneurship after the pandemic. She now focuses on creating journals designed to help new graduate nurses develop emotional resilience and confidence as they begin their professional journeys. You can learn from her journey how to pivot business ideas effectively, leverage specialized knowledge for growth, and identify unique opportunities to fill gaps in the market. So, Jenn, welcome to the show.
Oh my God, Candy, thank you so much for having me.
I'm glad to have you here. I'm excited for this conversation. It's something I haven't really talked about before, and something I know you just said you're very niched, but my goal is to really help entrepreneurs. And generally, people don't think like nurses or things like that might be an entrepreneur, but really often they are because they could be independent or things like that too. So I think this will be a great topic for those who, whether they're working in a hospital or maybe they're a traveling nurse, this could also help them too.
Absolutely.
Uh, but before I get into really questions on the topic, I would love for you just to tell us again, like what even inspired you to transition from being a bedside nurse to an entrepreneur, and what has your journey been like?
Yeah. I mean, I've never once thought about being an entrepreneur. Like I did remember I grew up and there was a point in time where my dad was an entrepreneur. And so, that was kind of one of those things that you don't really put much stock in that experience until all of a sudden it comes full circle.
Hmm.
And so, COVID was happening. I think we were maybe 6, 7 months into the pandemic. Like it was maybe August, September of 2020. And, things up in here in Canada were actually starting to ramp up a little bit more. And like I just noticed in the ER, you know, no, we weren't seeing nearly as many people as we normally were. Normally we're seeing 50 to 60 people in a day. We're seeing maybe 8 to 10. And the people that we had been seeing were just so much sicker than we typically were used to seeing people, because these people would come in 4 or 5 days ago, whereas because of the pandemic, they've put it off, they've put it off, they've put it off. And now, oh my God, we're like really, instead of somebody being, oh, we might be admitted, it's like, no, you're 100% going to be admitted. We're walking the
Hmm.
line of ICU. So I'm going, and in talking to colleagues, it's like, this seems like so backwards to what we're used to. And knowing full well that had somebody had access to their physician, had somebody access to a nurse that could come into the home and do a once over,
Hmm.
we could have avoided this admission in the first place, because, somebody could have been seen days ago.
Hmm.
And the idea of like a mobile kind of assessment kind of popped into my head. I'm like, wouldn't it be great if you just had a nurse? I'm already being exposed. There's the concern of being exposed out the window.
Right.
I'm already being exposed. I know the ER. I know a couple of ways to kind of like work the system, especially the Canadian healthcare system, how to make it work for you, because there are a lot of pitfalls. And, wouldn't it be nice that if you were kind of struggling and now nobody's seeing, like your doctor's not seeing you in office right now, everything's virtually. You've got a lot of elderly people who, can't use Zoom or don't have the a computer that's got even a camera in it. They're being lost in the
Hmm.
shuffle of things. So I remember thinking like it would just be so much easier if somebody could just pop in, see this person, physically see this person, do a little once over, get a set of vitals, and, report back to the person's primary physician to be like, hey, this is what's going on. You really need to take a peek at this, or you don't, or maybe you've got, a specialist or multiple specialists and nobody's communicating. So all of a sudden you've got the same medication ordered 3 different ways by a bunch of different physicians, and going like, am I supposed to, like, what am I supposed to be taking? Looking for clarification, just needing somebody to really come in and clean up and go, okay, this is what we're doing. Write a letter back to each of the specialists just to be like, hey, I've seen Mrs. So-and-so today. This is what's going on. By the way, we've got 3 different medications ordered, 3 different dosages, all this kind of stuff. So it was a way to really streamline things. And in thinking that, the people who have a nurse in the family are typically much better at gaming the system a little bit, having somebody there to really manage things. And I'm like, well, a nurse in the family. I'm like, well, that sounds good. I'm like, so I stole the little, there's my business name. And, the idea was just so simple that I'm like, oh, this has got to work. And for as many people as I talk to, oh my God, that's such a great idea. Let me know if you're expanding. Because again, there are other nurses who are looking for side hustles and other things. And I'm like, 100%. As soon as I have clients, I'll 100% let you know. And got not one client. So the Canadian healthcare system, for as flawed as it is at times, nobody is willing to personally pay for healthcare, which I kind of love, and I kind of it kind of sucked at the moment too. You're like, oh man, here we go. So it kind of died on the floor, to say. And so months went by. I was kind of trying to figure things out, and an opportunity then came up to really, I had a friend who was running a wellness clinic a year or 2 later, and I had pretty much forgotten about entrepreneurship in total. And she goes, hey, like, I really need an IV nurse. Like, would you be interested? And, and I'm like, sure, let's give it a try. I'm like, I'm really quite decent at starting IVs, and the whole trend of people having vitamins and looking for a more holistic care. I'm like, that resonates with me too. Let's try that. Tried that for a good year or 2. And it was a little bit easier because truly my friend already had the clinic running. Like, there wasn't really much on my end to do other than to make sure that my license was up to date and everything that I needed. And I needed a nurse practitioner to kind of give me medical directives so that I could actually start the IV, making sure legalities were covered that way. And actually, it kind of took off for a little bit. So I'm like, okay, like, this could actually take off and this could be something. And after about a year, just kind of petered off again. You're like, all right, like, I guess that's not what it's going to be. And just kind of forgot about it. And then within, a year after that, it kind of just started where, my book was finally was finally about to be published. I'm looking at kind of, entrepreneurship that way a little bit. And in the meantime, I found agency nursing. So, agency nursing is just, you've hired somebody to really just be a body to fill a hole in a shift for a period of time. They're not employed specifically by the hospital themselves. They just kind of come in, fill the gap, walk out. And typically, when you think of agency nurses, they're coming in for weeks at a time to months. They're usually traveling, usually to the US, Canadian nurses to US. That's a huge market. And when I originally thought about that, that's what I thought was, oh, you flew, you went to wherever, you went to some remote island or remote rural nursing, and you had to be away from your family for weeks to months at a time. When I actually looked into it, oh, there's actually hospitals around me who have needs that I can just go for the shift and then come home. And it's just a one here, a one here, a one here. And I'm like, let's try this. I've already gotten everything else ready for the business stuff. I've gotten my business license and a lot of the financial stuff straightened out and the nursing stuff straightened out. So I'm like, why not try? Because again, agency nurses are going to make roughly twice what I make as a staff nurse. And holy cow, that was it. That was the need. And I'm going, okay, here we are. So, I'm getting texts all the time from both my current employer, because I'm still currently employed with my staff job, but I'm job share, so I'm only working part-time, and then I've got enough wiggle room to then now pick up agency shifts, and
Mhm.
the agency shifts are now what's paying for the book to be published and paying for advertising and all the extras, and it's like, okay, well, that was clearly what needed to happen, but being able to pivot was something that, you don't assume you're going to have to do. You think that, oh, I've
Mhm.
got this great idea. I've got all these people telling me it's a great idea. But yet in the real world, it just doesn't take off. So it
Right.
was an interesting lesson to go, oh, I have to be flexible and I have to pivot.
Mhm. Well, I think that's so true. A lot of times people don't plan to be entrepreneurs and, become that accidental entrepreneur to begin with and might think like, oh, well, my journey is going to just be this straight line. It's going to be easy, and your story has demonstrated that a lot of times that's not the case, right?
No.
A lot of people think it's going to be easy, but we have all these twists and turns in the journey and something we might consider a failure. And everything leads us to where, we end up in the long run. And it could be frustrating getting there, but it's not always just that direct, between 2 points, you're going to get
Yeah.
there, right? So I'm glad you shared that though, too, because I think that offers encouragement to those who might be in the midst of that too, saying, I thought I had this great idea, but the market is not supporting it. I don't know what I should be doing right now, and so I think, that just can offer them some encouragement to keep on going. So thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that.
It's just one of those things, right? I mean,
Hmm.
the life of an ER nurse especially is 100% flexibility. Like you have no
Hmm.
idea what's going to walk in the door. So a skill of mine that I didn't realize was a skill was I'm hella flexible. And truly there is a lot of money to be made by being flexible, by not knowing your schedule months in advance, by,
Hmm.
kind of again gaming the system where my union with my regular job, my union, the position I'm in now, if I work a weekend, okay, I that's my standard weekend. I get paid whatever. But if I work the weekend after that, suddenly it's time and a half. And the
Hmm.
weekend after that, it's time and a half and time and a half and time and a half. So you figure out real quick, especially in a very large hospital system, it doesn't matter where I'm working in the hospital system, it still counts as me working the weekend. So
Hmm.
suddenly I don't have to work the full weekend. I can work just Friday night or Saturday night or Sunday day, but that carries over. And so then all of a sudden you're going, oh, I can make 1.5 times my wage, and yet I'm still only working half of the time. It's
Hmm.
not like me working full time. So it's been an interesting transition to go from, being the very loyal nurse and, I'm loyal to my hospital and I want to help people and doing all this stuff and then getting super burnt out going like, I'm just a number. Like,
Hmm.
so why am I thinking that I need to stay in this one spot when really there's a lot of latitude,
Hmm.
if you kind of figure out the ins and outs.
So obviously in this journey that you've gone on and some of the things you just, shared a lesson you even learned right there about I can actually work these certain hours in this way and I can actually be compensated better for my time, but I'm sure there's other lessons you've also learned through those, ups and downs in your business that you had to get to where you are now. So I'd love to hear like, well, what lessons do you think you learned and how can others apply those same lessons to their own ventures to help them along the journey?
Yeah, it's hard not to want to go 100% like just from 0 to 60. I'm going to buy all of the products, I'm going to buy all of the advertising materials, and I'm going to do all these things and get really hunkered down in, designing the logo and coming up with the business name and doing all the fun creative tasks that I quite like. Instead of then going, well, how does this work tax wise? And do I have, a system set up where I can keep track of all of the ins and outs and okay, so now I've really got to, I really should have spent more time definitely on financial literacy for sure, to start, as well as the basics of, sending an email blast. I still have trouble and I'm still not great at okay, I've got a small email list that again has kind of moved from time to time. And how do I create that email and then schedule the email? Because my ADHD brain, I lose track of things all the time.
Hmm.
So I'm like, it would be nice to have something that's fairly regularly going out again, just to kind of keep people's minds on you. And a lot of people are saying like that's kind of the thing to do, and this, that, and the other. Also didn't realize that paying for an email list is not something that should be done.
Hmm.
I had no idea. I just went on Upwork and said, "Oh, okay, send me the emails of 250 nurses that you can find, preferably in the US and all this kind of stuff." And not realizing that when I tried to plug those into, I think it was Mailchimp went, "I don't think so," and it took me months to figure out why that wasn't working. And so spending the money on the subscriptions, man, that adds up fast. And then not utilizing the subscriptions to their biggest ability. So I was using Intuit for all of my financial stuff, not realizing that it also was paired with Mailchimp and had other capabilities associated with all that. So I'm going, oh, well, I'm paying like a genius for XYZ services, and it's already included in the Intuit. I just very me didn't research it.
Hmm.
Just went with it, and now have made not a super costly mistake, but a fairly costly mistake that it would have saved me time and effort had I actually been aware of what was going on. So
That's
lessons
the hard
learned.
part, though, right? When you're
Oh,
starting something, you're so busy doing the things you need to do to get started that you don't always have time to learn all the other things, and
yeah.
so you're going to make those mistakes and learn from them, and so even just sharing that example, I'm sure will be helpful to someone else to say like, oh, there's probably some other less expensive options out there for me, and having to
Yes,
just take the time or having someone else help, with that aspect of it too. But I
absolutely.
would love to ask, obviously you were an ER nurse, you talked about that too, and transitioning into a business owner isn't always easy, or someone might think, well, it's not easy, like I'm in a corporate job and I don't know how easy it's going to be really to transition to an entrepreneur, but there really are those transferable skills that you have, right? So
Oh
can
yeah.
you maybe even talk about how you approached this concept of, well, yes, I'm an employee and I'm a nurse, but I have all these skills that I could actually use to create a business, to help others who are maybe considering it to look at their own skills and figure out what they can do to implement those.
Yeah, we take ourselves for granted, especially as women.
Hmm.
We think that we don't know anything, and typically along the way we've absolutely had people reminding us that we don't know what we're doing, and
Hmm.
how could you possibly do that, and are you nuts, and oh, it's just a cute little side hustle, and making really kind of demeaning comments. So it's
Hmm.
kind of, it does take a lot to very openly say, I'm starting a business, especially with no business background, and
Hmm.
surrounded by people who aren't very supportive. So it's hard, but you know, the amount of skills that we have, I mean, time management alone is
Hmm.
huge. You know, I'm, me and my undiagnosed ADHD, I'm utilizing the ADHD because when I want to go from 0 to 60, I'll get that hyperfixation. Sure, let's hyperfixate on that for a little bit. We'll get an idea out. We'll start writing another book or another journal. Like, let's kind of go that way. And, I'll let myself go for a bit, knowing
Hmm.
full well that, this may not be 100% what I thought I was going to be getting into, but holy cow, this actually supports, the entrepreneurship and the author portion as well, right? Like, I getting into the journals alone, that was another pivot. I remember I had started on the entrepreneurship. I was kind of chit-chatting with people through LinkedIn, and LinkedIn honestly is a super, super underutilized resource for
Hmm.
not just nurses, but for business professionals. There's so much on there just with networking and saying like, hey, like what you're doing, really hope that you're doing well. Let me know if you need anything, is usually my typical, if I'm following somebody or I'm reaching out to say like, hey, really, really just appreciate what you're doing. You know, people, you underestimate how much that means to people just on a daily basis, because not one of us gets enough praise for the craziness that we deal with on a daily basis. So reaching out to somebody and just being, again, the very Canadian way of being super nice, very forthcoming, and just not asking for anything off the bat, because oh my God, there's no faster way to people off than to hit them up with a LinkedIn message and then be asking for something or offering a service or something like that. But people have been so great. So I start my networking. All of a sudden, I'm getting this offer to come to this massive conference that's a health conference in Vegas. And so this is July of last year. My book's just about ready to go. I'm kind of getting things organized this way. And, I'm talking with these people, and I thought I was talking about my book, Nursing Intuition. They were thinking that they're like, oh, we're looking for nurse entrepreneurs or nurse innovators. I'm like, oh, I guess that's kind of me. And so we're talking, and they're like, oh, we're a little hesitant to like take you on because it's like this nurse approved business kind of mentorship program. And I said, well, hey, I'm flexible. Like, let me know. I've got a lot going on, but I can do a lot in a very, very short amount of time. And so they're like, well, we're going to give you an opportunity, and, here's what we're looking for. This is what the areas that you might want to go down, and all these kind of things. And we'll give you a month, see what you come up with. And so very quickly I was like, okay, just selling the book alone is not going to work. So I'm like, let me again, pivot again. And that's where all the journals came from. I'm like, okay, so, what do nurses need? Well, nurses, as they come from school to working the bedside, the learning curve is straight up. You're petrified, you're nervous. Nursing school has told you you're going to save everybody. Fun fact, you're not. There's just so much going on and so many soft skills that are happening that they don't even touch on in nursing school. So I'm like, everyone's going on and on and on about burnout and resilience and all these things. I'm like, well, again, the very Canadian thing, prevention. Like, we need to prevent the burnout before it happens. Because I can tell you right now, if a nurse is burnt out and she or he has made up their mind that they're walking away, no amount of money, no amount of therapy, no amount of alcohol is going to change their mind. They're done. So, instead of wasting all that time and money at trying to like save somebody who's already gone, put it into your orientation programs, put it into supporting your new nurses, extend your orientation programs. And, it's roughly $50,000 to onboard a nurse. And in the meantime, you're paying time and a half to try and fill those shifts. You're working short. Your current staff is getting upset. So if you could dampen the amount of turnover that you've got, you can take like $1 billion industry, and your return on investment is insane for like a $20 journal. And so when you go like that, and again, I was pitching to CEOs and business professionals and people who weren't in the nursing industry, trying to get them to understand this is what you need to be doing. All of a sudden now I've got an order for 6,000 books to a magnet hospital in the US. And I'm going, what just happened? It's like, holy cow. Okay. All right. We're going to make this work. And then it's a whole thing of invoicing and how do I make it work? Canada to the US. And if we're printing the books in the US and they're staying in the US, what about the taxes and all these other fun little hurdles that are great problems to have?
Well, what I heard from that story too is really looking for the opportunities that present themselves, right? This wasn't something you even expected to see, but it came about, you took advantage of it, and then you dealt with all the other things that come along with it too, but really looking for those opportunities and seizing on them and having the confidence in yourself, because even they were saying, well, I'm not sure you're going to be able to do this because we're looking for this, right? And that's when we could doubt ourselves and say, well, I'm not what they want, and, kind of give up on that. But that's not what you did. You took advantage of that opportunity that presented itself. So I think that's something that entrepreneurs listening, or someone who wants to become an entrepreneur can take from that story even is, number one, really look at the skills that you have and realize, even if you're starting your business now, it doesn't mean that you don't know what you're doing, because you might have been doing it for 10 years already. So you have the experience. It's just you're doing it in a new way now because you're doing it as an entrepreneur. And so don't doubt yourself because you know what you're doing. It's just in a different method, right? So I think those are the kind of things that we sometimes compare ourselves to others and like say, well, we're not as good as that person, but we don't need to really put ourselves down that way. But sometimes we do.
It's one of those things where we all walk around thinking that we're frauds and this whole imposter syndrome. Everyone's like, everybody can see right through me. Fun fact, people take you at your word. People will just take what you tell them, and that's it. Because A, they don't have time to go investigating further, and B, especially if you're coming from a professional practice, they're just going to understand that they're taking you at their word and they're going with it. So to be able to get comfortable with, I have sold this many books. I have developed this line of textbooks. I've done the research into the cost of onboarding a nurse and the cost of transfers and losses and all these things. And, coming from an insider perspective, let me tell you, it's invaluable advice that I'm giving you right now, because I'm still on the front lines. I'm still working it. I'm still at bedside. I can tell you exactly what's going on in my unit. And if you were to put me on other units, I could very quickly tell you what's going on in those units also. So, I'm the expert in my field. That's just it. And I've carved a little niche out that this is my new field. And, are there other nurses putting out journals like mine? Maybe. I haven't come across them. So there's nothing to compare to. So getting, again, confidence and getting to the point of being very proud to be, this is what I'm doing, but this is why I'm doing it. Because a lot of the things that I'm doing comes from, I'm trying to help patients. I'm trying to help nurses. I'm trying to staunch the burnout. I'm trying to help new nurses transition from school to bedside. That's my why. And it's a very nursing why. But, that's what I want to do. And that's what I'm hoping to accomplish to do. And when moving into sales, again, somebody who's very not salesy, if you're coming at it from a point of view where you love what you're doing and you're doing it for a really good purpose, selling is nothing. You just have to reiterate why you're doing it. And that's the sales pitch itself.
Right. And you're just sharing, you have a solution to their need, and so you don't have to be pushy. It's just, I hear this is what you need. Here's what I could do to fill it. If you think it's great, for what you are looking for, then let me help you. Right?
Yeah. And if not, no worries. Hope that you'll have a great day, and just, it is what it is. And there's going to be no's, and yes, the no's suck, but, you can kind of turn around and be like, that's really unfortunate. They're probably going to come back to me when I'm super successful. It's unfortunate that they didn't get in on ground level. Oh, well, we'll see them later.
Right. Exactly. Well, this has been a fun conversation. I enjoyed hearing your journey, but we are coming to the end of the time that we have together. So if someone's listening and they're saying, I want to learn more about kind of what you've been doing and how you're, moving into all the different things you're doing, I want to connect with you. How can they find you and connect?
Yeah, so I'm probably most active on LinkedIn. So it's Jennifer Johnson, BSCNRN. You can also find me on Instagram and TikTok at ernurse.jenn, Jenn. You can find my website at www.rxforgrowth.com. And yeah, just come and hit me up. I mean, if you've got questions about business or writing, or, you're trying to find your niche and you're just not sure, hit me up. I may, be a little slow to get back to you because everything is insanity. And you may get an email at a very odd hour because I'm working straight night shifts. But, the whole goal is just to help people move forward and be happy with what they're doing. Because let me tell you, if anybody knows that life is too short, it's me.
I'm sure you see it every day, so.
Yes, I do.
Well, thanks, Jen, for being a guest, talking on this journey that you've gone through and the ups and downs and the lessons you've learned and, how you're helping other people too. I appreciate your sharing your journey and your insights. And thank you so much.
Anytime. Happy to be back.
And to you, the listener, if you enjoyed today's topic and you want to hear additional information, you can find access to exclusive content in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in today. Would you please share this episode with those you know and leave a review on your favorite platform? And if you find our show informative, would you consider being a financial sponsor to help me continue my mission to educate business owners? A link is located in the episode description, and no amount is too small. I'd really appreciate your support. If you are interested in connecting with our guest and receiving the offer they had to share, a link to our resource page is in the show notes. Finally, if you have any bookkeeping or payroll needs, reach out to us at 310-534-5577 or contact@abandp.com. My team and I are eager to assist you. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.